headlines have anything to say about it, it appears that there is a new diet trend in the making, the African diet. Did you see this in the news last week? Did you read about this story? So a recent study in Nature Medicine found that shifting to a diet that is typical of the Chaga people in northern Tanzania for just 2 weeks had a strikingly positive effect on metabolic health, inflammatory markers, and microbiomes of the individuals who participated in the study. And they say that this diet might actually be as healthy to a diet that we have been hearing about all the time, the Mediterranean diet. Listen, I think it's a good thing that researchers, that we're finally paying attention to food patterns beyond those of American and European populations, right? It's important that we look beyond these two broad regions. But regardless of where the diet is pulled from, I'm really left wondering, are these diet headlines actually helpful for families? Or are they just another version of this way of eating is better than yours that actually ends up putting more pressure on us to get it, quote unquote, right? So today, let's talk about how to use diet headlines like this to actually make something that works for real families. Hi, I'm Dr. Kiyah Duffey. I am a nutrition researcher, which means when I see stuff like this, I read it for fun. I know. So when I saw this headline, I was really intrigued. First, because you don't often hear about dietary patterns from an African country broadly, let alone a small traditional Tanzanian tribe that lives on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro. And second, because our family happened to live very close to the Moshi region in Tanzania for a year while my husband was doing his own dissertation fieldwork. And so I am personally familiar with both this region and its cuisines. And this African diet, again, the diet of the Chaga people, is really interesting. Generally speaking, it contains lots of whole grains, think millet and sorghum, really kind of ancient grains, legumes, leafy greens, lots of fermented foods, and there is minimal animal protein and traditionally very few processed foods. Does that sound familiar at all? It should, because in broad strokes, it's not all that different from the Mediterranean diet or the Blue Zone diets or the DASH diet, or any other eating pattern that to date has been labeled as healthy and maybe even the best. But let's zoom out for just a second. The people who are eating this way in Tanzania or Sardinia or Okinawa, they aren't doing it just because they read a study or a headline or watched a Netflix documentary or listened to an influencer. Their diets, yes, they're shaped by their culture, of course, but also by geography, by history, by availability, and sometimes necessity. These foods are part of a rhythm of their life that includes daily physical activity, strong social ties, shared meals, lower levels of stress, and frankly, a pace of life that is different, sometimes radically different than most of us experience, especially here in the US. And that is a piece that's often missing from these headlines. We tend to think, oh, if I just buy millet and cook more greens, then I'll be healthier. But the food alone isn't the magic here. What people are eating is really only part of the story. It's how they eat, it's when, it's with whom, it's why that really can be and are a part of the secret sauce of their connection to health. And that's a piece that I think we should talk more about. So here's where I land on this whole thing. You don't need to eat like an Italian grandmother or a Tanzanian farmer or a 7-day Adventist in California to be healthy. What we need to do is identify a way of eating that aligns with your family's values and fits into your family's reality, your schedules, your relationships, your activities, your financial limitations. I know I've said this before, I think it bears repeating again. Labels, Mediterranean, Paleo, Blue Zone, these can be helpful inspirations. They can spark ideas. They can help you set intention and find direction. But they become a problem when we treat them like they are absolute rules or they are a one-size-fits-all solution, and we don't consider how the elements of any other part of these diets fits in with our larger reality. Because in real life, here's my kind of real life, the kind with 3 kids, 2 jobs, school lunches, after school activities, and never enough clean spoons. Seriously, where do they all go? What you need is a system and goals that are sustainable and flexible, not rigid and prescriptive. So personally, for me, I have developed some goals that work for our family, that have nothing to do with them eating millet specifically or knowing how to drizzle olive oil like a proper Italian chef. What I want for myself, for my kids, and for our family is to be willing to try new foods, even if we know we don't like them yet. We don't like them yet. To eat a wide variety of foods over time. To learn how to listen to our own hunger and fullness cues and maintain that ability, and to have a sense of where our food comes from. These, I think, are the things that can help any specific eating pattern become a healthy one, whether it's rooted in cassava or caprese. So when you see headlines like this, instead of adopting that diet trend wholesale, ask yourself a few key questions. What is already working for our family's meals? Where do we, or maybe you, where do I feel frustrated or stuck? What is one thing from this headline that could possibly work for our family? And finally, how can we use our values to guide our mealtime decisions? So let's take a real life example pulled from this headline. You read about the African diet and you think, you know what? I am going to start adding more fermented foods. I think that would be a good idea. That's great. It's a great goal to have. But if your kids or you have never tried fermented anything, rushing into all meals of fermented food might backfire, and fast. So start small. Pickled cucumbers or carrots, yogurt, sourdough toast. All of these can be gentle ways in. And when you do serve these foods, describe what they taste like. Have your kids rate them. Don't push them to eat it, just explore. Remember, it's less about the specific food and more about building curiosity and confidence around tasting new things. That is what can build lifelong healthy habits, not just eating millet alone. And maybe you're left thinking, but I don't have time to cook sorghum or roast yams or make fresh pasta every night. I get it. Neither do I. Oh my gosh. But if you can make time to ask your kids how that broccoli tasted, even if they hated it, ask them. Or find the time to put a small amount of some new food, new vegetable, new fruit on their plate with some regularity. Or take the time to share one more meal per week as a family. That is the work you can do that will really matter in the long run. So sure, go ahead, get inspired by the Mediterranean diet. Get curious about how they eat in Okinawa, Japan, or Sardinia, Italy. Borrow recipes, try new grains, read articles, read the headlines, read the science behind the headlines. Just don't get too caught up in the idea that there is one right way to eat, because there isn't. The most powerful thing you can do for your family's health is to create a way of eating that reflects your values, your life and your needs, and your long-term goals. It doesn't need a fancy label. You can create one if you want. If you want help figuring out what your food values are or how to build a plan that works for you and your family, you can check out all the free resources posted below or on my website. And leave a comment here. What's one thing that your family does around food that feels really good to you right now? I'd love to hear about it.